Ask Mike, brought to you by the Stadium Shop on Razorback in Fayetteville.
Happy Monday, everybody. It's another edition of Ask Mike. Courtney Mims alongside Mike Irwin. Mike, we have a lot of questions this week as well, so got to get right into it, right?
Got to do it.
Got to do it. Our first question is from S. Giles, who asked, are we cursed or what? We finally get our defense going, and what happens? We lose our quarterback, and the offensive line suddenly can't block anybody.
Yeah, look, that's the way it goes. I mean, you had all these injuries at the start of the year. Then you get all that stuff on defense worked out, and I've talked about how they slowly got better and better. And then about the time they're ready to cut loose really defensively, you have this happen. Is Arkansas cursed? If you talk to fans, they always believe that. They believe that no matter what happens, when things are going good, they're going to go bad. You go back to Bobby Petrino, had it going for 3 years, and then all of a sudden all that stuff happens. Everything comes off the rails. Bielema comes in here, has a rough first year. Then all of a sudden he has 2 good years. Everything's going, man. They're the Liberty Bowl. They've won 2 straight bowl games. And then, boink, goes off the rails and everything goes bad. And then you had a chance to get Mike Leach, but you had an interim AD that went, no, we'd rather have Chad Morris. And so you get those 2 bad years. Pittman comes in here, has a good first year, better second year, and now everybody's mad. But the difference is something like that. The fact that you had all those injuries on defense early, so you didn't really have a whole team playing well together, and now you got the defense playing like they should have been at the start of the year, and now the offense is not where it needs to be. So I don't know. Curse theory is as good as any explanation I've got.
The curse theory
One of these
might
years,
be
it's
accurate.
all going to be meshed together, and everything's going to be fine.
One of these years. Not this year, though.
One of these years, not this year.
DWR says today should put to rest that Malik Hornsby is the QB of the future. What are your thoughts on where we go next, portal or freshman?
You know, they've got this Malachi, what's his name?
Malachi Singleton.
Malachi Singleton. I'm not a recruiting guy. I don't follow all that. I know who he is. I just don't know that. Malachi Singleton, true freshman, run-pass quarterback out of Georgia, really good guy, fits into their offense and all that. And he's an early enrollee. He's already signed. He's coming in January, so he'll be here. So he would technically be in the same situation KJ was when he was a freshman, and you had Felipe Franks, you know, that came in and was the starter, and then KJ was developed by the end of the year enough to start at Missouri and almost won the game, and Missouri was pretty good that year. So you could do that if you're the coaching staff. You could say, well, we got Malachi. We'll bring him in here, and if KJ comes back, you know, at some point he'll be ready as a backup. That's risky. I'm guessing here, but I think they'll go portal. That's sort of what I'm hearing. They know they need somebody to come in here that can be a viable backup quarterback next year. And, you know, honestly, if they bring somebody like that in, here's what I think is going to happen. I think they've learned their lesson on this deal. I think they're going to talk to KJ and say, you're going to be the starter next year, but we don't want to play you all the time because we don't want you to get hurt again. You were out there on the field too much this year. We're going to have a guy that comes in and spells you a little bit in certain situations, maybe somebody that's a little bit different than you, maybe a passing quarterback, and we're going to play him some too because we have to have him ready if something happens to you. So, again, I'm speculating, but I think that's what's going to happen. I think they're going to bring in a portal guy. They're going to tell him, yeah, you're going to play some. You may not be the starter, but you'll play. And then maybe the year after that, he's the starter. You know, Malachi develops under him. That's what I think the long-term plan will be, although I haven't talked to them and they wouldn't talk to me about this. I'm speculating.
Yeah, and Malachi also is dealing with some injury. He had an injury this year, so depends on if he's healthy or not and good to go and can go through a normal fall with the team as well. I think that will be a factor as well. H.L. McCamish says, I thought Malik would play better. He looked completely out of whack. Nothing like what he did against Mississippi State. What happened?
Well, the difference in the 2 games is that they were pass blocking better. Now, you can say it was the O-line doing better, or you could say Mississippi State didn't have the same kind of D lineman that LSU had, whatever was going on. The difference was Malik didn't have as much time to throw as he did in the Mississippi State game. But I will say this about Malik, and I've said it before, when he first came in here and everybody was enamored of his so-called track speed, which we keep hearing when the game announcers talk about this. Track speed is not football speed. What I've seen from him all along is a guy that doesn't cut well, he doesn't cut sharply. Remember I think there were a couple of times when that LSU dude is like running him down. He's trying to get around him.
Yeah.
And you're kind of going parallel along the line of scrimmage, and he's trying to beat him to the edge. All you got to do is cut back real fast like that, and he goes this way and you go that way. Malik doesn't do that because he doesn't cut well on a dime. He kind of cuts like turning a car. It's the difference between doing this with turning the wheel on a car and kind of going. Oh. And I just don't think he cuts. And then he's got this stumbling problem. If you go back and look at video when he's played, on that play when they bypass the field goal in the first quarter, and he takes the snap back there, and then he goes right up the middle. He's got a hold. When he gets to the line of scrimmage, he stumbles and falls down. I don't know if he'd been able to power across the goal line, but it didn't matter because he fell down. And he does that a lot. So when you start talking about him as a runner, he's not a good runner. Every once in a while, he'll get into a situation where he's got an open straight line or a little bit of a curve run, and he'll take off and get you 10 or 15 yards. But he doesn't cut that well. So he's not the runner that everybody thought he was. So now we're back to him as a passer. He throws a good tight spiral, okay? And I think he would have been okay in this game if he had had more time to throw. Because we saw later on when Fortin came in the game, he had the same issue.
Yeah.
He threw one or two really good passes, but he didn't have, in the end, when it really mattered, LSU just pressured him and whacked him on the arm a couple of times, and the second time they ruled it a fumble, and that was the end of the game. So, you know, I don't want to get on Malik too much. I don't think he was what they thought he was going to be, but in this game, it wasn't just him. It was the lack of good pass blocking. They didn't protect him enough throwing the football.
They really didn't.
And he's not going to beat you with his legs, regardless of what people say. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right on that. Hog Hill Billy says, absolutely dumbfounded how Briles can't make adjustments and not double team LSU's Perkins during the whole game. Can he not read defenses? This isn't the first time this has happened.
Well, you know, there was a question that came up. Didn't one of the players in the press conference talk about that?
Yeah.
Didn't ask if they had a game plan for him? That was the question.
Yeah, it was Ricky Stromberg.
Yeah, and he said, we didn't have a game plan for him. And then everybody all jumped all over, oh, Pittman, how stupid can they be? That really wasn't what was being said there.
Yeah.
What Stromberg was saying was, we didn't have a game plan specifically for that guy. And that's not unusual. Didn't mean they didn't have a game plan along the offensive line on how to block these guys. But a better question at that point, and I think Alyssa did ask it maybe right after that, was why didn't you adjust?
Yeah, she did
Once
ask
he
that.
started having that great game
Yes.
and he's harassing you, why was there not an adjustment? Why didn't you start double teaming this guy? And there's no real answer there.
Well, they didn't answer it. They just didn't answer it.
That's a mistake. That was a mistake that they did not adjust. Now, you can blame that on Briles. You can blame it on the O-line coach. You can blame it on Pittman, whoever you want to blame it on. They should have adjusted because that guy ended up making the play of the game. I think he's the one that got whacked Cade Fortin on the arm and caused that fumble at the end. So, yeah, that was a screw-up.
It really was, and it was Ricky Stromberg. But it was funny because when he was asked about that, and he said, we really didn't have a game plan for him, and then he proceeded to talk about all the things that they game planned for when they were talking about it.
They just didn't have a game plan for him specifically.
Exactly.
But they should have adjusted to him once he's having a great game.
You are exactly right, Mike. Slobber Slob says, wow, great game. Shows how much we rely on KJ, but dang, they were giving it everything. Should have took the 3 points in the first, but I understand trying to set the tone early. Just didn't work this time.
Well, there were two decisions made in that game, both by Sam Pittman, and he explained after the game why he did what he did. But early on, again, he bypasses that 3 points. Now, here's the interesting part. The fans were all woo, that was the right decision, because I'm sitting here watching Twitter when that's going on.
I saw, yeah.
And they all like it because Clint Sterner came on, former Razorback Clint Sterner came on and said, yeah, he did the right thing. So they're all over it's the right thing. And what they're all saying is, that won't be the difference in this game. Oops, sorry, you're wrong. It was the difference in the game. Mm-hmm. So, and then the other decision to go for it was when they went for it on 4th and I think 2 from midfield on the first possession out of the locker room. And what happened there is Malik lost yardage, and so LSU ended up having to go 40 yards for a touchdown instead of, if they had punted, they might have had to go 80 or 85 or 90. And that's the only touchdown they scored in the game. So you could make the point, if you want to, and some people have on social media, that you bypassed the 3 points. That kept the game from going into overtime. And you gave them, by that mistake, by trying to go for it, you gave them 7 points that they wouldn't have had. So those two decisions were the difference in winning or losing the game. So that's on Sam Pittman. Now, I'll talk a little bit more about that later. I don't think that makes him a bozo or anything. A lot of coaches are doing that these days. That's the point.
Yeah, I've seen that as well. Mousetown wants to know what's going on with all these college football coaches who are suddenly deciding it's bad to punt. It's like Kevin Kelly wrote a book and they're trying to make it a bestseller. Guess what? It ain't working.
Yeah, Kevin Kelly's the former Pulaski Academy high school coach that was famous or infamous or whatever for never punting. And he always claimed that statistically, in the course of the season, it all plays out better in your advantage, of the analytics or whatever you want to call it. It works out better if you just don't punt. You might get burned a few times, but it's going to make the difference the other way more often than not. Well, that may be fine for him in that situation. It's not really very smart in college football, but guys are doing it, and they even did it in the NFL last night, Cowboys.
I saw that.
So it's not like Sam Pittman's the only guy that's doing that. And Sam explained, he said, I made those decisions because I thought we had the right play to, in one case, score a touchdown and the other make the first down. And he said, it just didn't turn out to be that way. Here's what he's not. This is what he didn't talk about, which to me factors into this decision. If you got KJ, you got the right play? Yeah. I say, okay. Malik, the guy that's stumbling because you may have to have him run and do it? No, I don't think so. I'm going to rely on my punter and my field goal kicker rather than that.
I'll take Cam Little.
but it's easy to sit here and say this now, although I did say it when the Twitter thing was going on. All these, I'm going, Clint, I don't agree with you. That 3 points, because I was looking at how well the defense was playing and saying, those guys are playing so well, you better take any points you can get at this point.
Yeah.
And I think that turned out to be exactly what they needed to do. Maybe I got lucky in saying that, but people were just hammering you. I don't know anything about what you're talking about. And then what I noticed, it's just like anything with social media. Nobody was saying that when the game was over. It was all like, oh, we never said that.
It was funny because I was up in the press box with Alyssa watching the game, and her and I turned to each other and we went, when that happened, we went, hopefully they don't lose by 3. And
they did.
They did. So anyways, Blood Red Hog asks, does Briles have any history of QB development in his previous stops? I don't see much progression by Malik or Cade. LSU was a game we easily win with a competent passer.
Yeah, I had to go look this up, but actually he does have a history, and I'm going to get into some. I'm going to read some of this stuff. I don't have a graphic on it, but when he was at Baylor, his first job as a quarterbacks coach was 2015 and 2016. He had Seth Russell, threw for 29 touchdowns and 300 yards a game.
Wow.
But he also ran for about 500, so he's got a good run pass quarterback. And his backup quarterback threw 12 touchdown passes in that. So he not only developed one guy, he had 2 guys.
Nice.
And they were both, so he had an adequate backup. Now, a year later, Russell's still on that team, and then Zach Smith is the backup. They combined for 33 touchdown passes, and Russell again ran for around 500 yards. So he's got 2 quarterbacks there. Florida Atlantic, Jason Driscoll and
Daniil Parr.
Yeah, do you know this clown?
I think I have. I remember these 2 names.
I don't
so
pay
yes.
attention to Florida. I should say clown, but
Florida Atlantic.
I don't pay any attention to Florida Atlantic. Anyway, his backup, the starter Driscoll and his backup combined for 19 touchdown passes. So again, that's not awesome, but he's playing 2 quarterbacks. Houston in 2018, he had 1 quarterback. Clayton Tune, he threw for 31 touchdowns and ran for about 500 yards. So he's got another run-pass guy.
Yeah.
At Florida State, James Blackburn and the backup, they combined for 24 touchdown passes. So again, he's playing with 2 quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And I think most people would tell you that Briles did a good job his first year here with 2 things. They brought Felipe into the portal, so he was smart enough to look at what we had here and say, we got to have a guy to come in and be the starter. And he did a good job of integrating him in the spring, in the summer, into that system. And he went from a very different system at Florida to more of a run-pass thing here.
Yeah,
and
very
was
different.
pretty good at both. And then did a good job developing KJ Jefferson as a true freshman, because at the end of the year, he had to start at Missouri, and Arkansas almost won that game. So all of that indicates, yes, he develops quarterbacks. The only 2 times he hasn't really have a viable backup was, I guess, that 1 year at Houston. And then I think the last two here at Arkansas, because he really didn't have a viable backup last year. They just got lucky that KJ didn't get hurt. And this year. So you can look at his whole history. I don't know, however many years that is, most of the time, 8 years or whatever, he's had two good quarterbacks.
Yeah.
But the last 2 years here and 1 year, which it didn't hurt him because the guy plays the whole year and, he had good numbers at Houston, but 1 year there and the last 2 years here is when he didn't have two quarterbacks apparently that could play. So that doesn't mean he can't develop quarterbacks. There's plenty of evidence that he can.
Yeah, no.
Again, I think the mistake was last winter when Malik hit the portal. For whatever reason, they talked him out of it, brought him back, and didn't go into the portal. Now, maybe there wasn't anybody. Maybe they looked, and they just didn't see anybody in the portal that they felt like they could bring in and would be better. I don't know. But that would have been the time to hit the portal last winter and try to bring somebody in here to be the backup, and it didn't happen. Now, I'm not going to just rip them for that because I don't know what the dynamics were on the portal at that time, but that's where the issue really came into play.
Yeah. Pig's Feet on Hogville wants to know, I wonder what it would look like if our defense and offense played great at the same time. Just a pipe dream?
Oh, I think it's a good question. I think the answer is this team would be really good if the offense and the defense both played together at the same time. That hasn't happened. We addressed that earlier. Can it still happen? Sure. I was just over at Sam Pittman's press conference. He said they're very hopeful that KJ can play this week. He felt a lot better last week, but they don't know, and they're going to have to go for the week of practice, so everybody have their fingers crossed. I only know that I can point to what happened the last time he set out a whole game, which was the Mississippi State game, and he had maybe his best game of the year statistically against BYU and then played well against Auburn. So he had two good games after sitting out a week. If he comes back the way he did the last time after resting a week, I think they can win these next two games. I think with the defense improved the way it is, if they can get this offensive, and part of the offensive line problems, I think, is the fact that you don't have a running threat at quarterback. I think that's helped Arkansas's O-line in their running game all year long with KJ because they got to worry about him too. So maybe if they come back and he can do both, maybe the O-line gets better and they might win. You'll get the answer to your question if KJ, I think, is healthy.
Yeah.
Because I think the O-line is really a lot better, or the defense is really a lot better than it was.
Yeah, and maybe we get Dalton Wagner back as well for that O-line.
There's a chance of that. He's supposed to practice today, so we'll see.
We'll see. Ark River Baron wants to know, could there be a possibility of KJ not playing the rest of the season due to injury or because he is done with the Hogs and wants to prepare for the draft? And there's another question on this as well. Could it be that certain coaches or coordinators already have one foot out the door and are currently looking elsewhere? So a two-part question
Yeah, I would say no to both of those. First of all, the information I get is that KJ is not going to be drafted. So I don't think he would just sit out on purpose so that he could go to the draft. I think that would be the worst thing he could do because if his draft position is uncertain right now, he stops playing, it's really going to be uncertain. So I think if he wants to play in the NFL, he needs to come back and have another good year next year, maybe without injury. So that part of it I'm pretty sure is wrong. Part two, certain coaches or coordinators already have one foot out the door. Where are they going to go? Arkansas hadn't been ripping it up. You can't just, I'm a coach. We're not having the kind of season we started off. We were ranked in the top 10 for a week or so at the early part of the season, and now we're not there, but I'm going to quit and somebody else is going to hire me. So I don't think they have one foot out the door.
Yeah.
The only other answer to that could be, and you could be implying that they know they're going to be gone, so they're just not trying hard. That's another dumb thing because they're not going to do that. Coaches are not going to do that. Why would they do that? It would just hurt them trying to get another job. And finally, here's the thing. Give Sam Pittman more credit than this. Even if he's sitting there right now in his mind and he's questioning whether some of these guys need to be gone or not, he's not going to indicate that to them. Why would he? Then they might stop coaching. You know, you might have an issue. So I don't think any of that is true. I'm not a mind reader. I'm not over there. No one said anything about this, but I do know this. There's enough of a rumor mill over there that if there was any indication a bunch of these coaches are going to be gone, if Sam Pittman was blaming this on his staff, which he doesn't tend to do, the only time he's ever really made any changes with the staff is about recruiting. and the recruiting has gone good. So I just don't think I think there's a very real possibility, a bunch of people are going to get mad, that there's no coach changing here, no turnover.
I want to agree with you on that as well. I mean, I hate to say it, but I kind of feel like it's like that.
I wouldn't be shocked if one left, maybe another one or whatever, but I think there's a real possibility they all come back.
Yeah, I mean, they all like it here, so it really, really depends on what Sam Pittman wants,
If you're laying this off on coaching, come on, take a look. Without your starting quarterback, you just came within 3 points of the SEC West champions. That's bad coaching? Are you serious? How? It may not be great that you didn't get the outcome you want, but this doesn't suggest a bunch of bumbling coaches over there that last year knew what they were doing, but this year they don't.
Yeah, I agree. Pat Bowe asked, do you think Quincy McAdoo will stay on defense next year, or is he a better wide receiver?
I don't know if we'll ever find out if he's a better wide receiver. We just know he's a good cornerback, right?
I think he's a good athlete.
But what we've seen, what he's done with just a couple of weeks of practice and then getting thrown in a game for 2 games. What we've seen from him, I think he's a future All-SEC cornerback, and I think he's also future All-American maybe. And I think he's that good.
Yeah.
We're just starting to see what he can do. So I don't think he's going to move back. He's the guy that said, I want to play I'll play where they put me, and this is where they put him. And I think Barry Odom would kill Sam Pittman if he said, we're taking him back as a wide receiver. First of all, they're loaded with wide receivers. They aren't loaded with guys that can do what he can do in the secondary. They're bringing some in, and I think they'll get better, but he needs to stay where he is, and I think he will.
I agree as well. Marty Bird's Proxy wants to know regarding NIL, what are some of the rules, such as can schools tell recruits about potential NIL deals? Do businesses have to report their association with players to the player's school? What is the NCAA doing to monitor this?
Okay, we got a graphic on this. There are 2 basic rules, and rule number 1 is you cannot offer a specific NIL deal in the recruiting process. Specific deals can only be discussed after an athlete signs his letter of intent. That rule has been largely ignored by some schools, and it has led to what some believe is the outright recruiting, buying of recruits, and it's one of the things I think is going to get corrected when the NCAA gives up control of college football and whatever this new governing body, whatever it ends up being called. When they take it over, I think they are going to make some changes to NIL because that rule is it's there and it's being ignored at some schools. Okay, number 2, NIL deals cannot be tied to athletic performance. As an example, a quarterback could not be offered a deal that goes up in monetary value based on the number of touchdown passes he throws. And I don't think there's been a widespread violation of that. I haven't heard that anyway. It's too easy to figure that out. So those are the 2 rules. It should be very simple to make sure that they're adhered to, and one of them has been. It's just the other one has been interpreted as the Wild Wild West, and it should not be.
Yeah.
I think the NCAA should have already come in and nailed some schools violating the other rule, but here's the problem. They are there's one of two things going on with the NCAA. When they lost a court case over this to the Supreme Court, they either got scared and they're afraid to do anything, or that the Supreme Court will get them again. There'll be another lawsuit. They're either afraid of that or they're pouting, one or the other. But they should have solved this problem, and to my knowledge, nobody has been called to question on this.
I mean, they have those collectives that are so interesting, and they're put out there.
But the collective should be something that you're introduced to once you've signed your letter of intent.
Right. You shouldn't be told about it. And
okay, you can make $6.2 million once you do this. You can't do that, not legally.
But some of it isn't the schools saying these NIL deals. Isn't it specific companies reaching out to athletes?
If they did it, then that's a violation.
Yeah.
So, again, the schools, I guarantee you at Arkansas, because I've talked to their NIL guy, they don't do this. And they explain it to the athletes. Once you get here, we've got a plan, and you'll be fine. But that's all they can basically say if they're following the rules. Unlike at Tennessee, where the state legislature just said, hey, we think we're making it legal for high school guys to get NIL deals.
Yeah.
What they're basically saying is, we, the state of Tennessee, think it's legal for this to happen. So that means that it can happen. Well, yes, it can happen legally, but the NCAA can still have its rules, and what I would say in answer to that, if I'm the NCAA, is I'm going to say, sure, we're not going to send you to jail for that. It is legal, but it's not according to our rules.
Right.
So if you, Tennessee, want to do this, if you want to violate this rule, we're going to get you. And if you don't like it, you can drop out of Division I football and do whatever you want to do. But we have this rule. And instead, it's like, oh, we passed a rule that says you can do this. Well, you can do it. Doesn't mean you can do it and not get hit with violations by the NCAA, except they haven't done it.
Yeah, but if companies are going out and saying, they're, you know, Mike Irwin, I want to offer you $1 million to come to Arkansas, that's that company doing it. The NCAA can't come down and say, hey, you know, whichever company.
They can't say you can't do that. But
right.
what they can do is say, it happened to your athlete.
Okay, and then punish the school.
And then you needed to stay on top of that. You brought him in, he signed, and now we know he did that beforehand, so he's not eligible.
Oh, wow.
They can do that.
Yeah, they could do that. Lawson Swine says, you were talking about the new committee regulating the NIL money by having it doled out through the universities. Does that also mean that there will be a cap on NIL money for each university, much like there is a salary cap in the NFL?
Well, first of all, he refers to a new committee. What I referred to as committees working on this. What we're talking about here is not a committee. We're talking about eventually a new governing body for college football at the what's now FBS level. I think they'll call it something else because I think they'll get rid of that idiotic terminology. But however many schools end up being a part of this, whether it's 64, 72, or whatever, this will be a new governing body for those teams, those schools. And so right now there are some committees, they call them higher education committees. They're just people at different schools that are fed up with this and want a new organization. And so they're discussing a lot of different issues. And what they're going to do when it's finally over is they're going to have some answers for how they solve current problems so that they then can have maybe a draft of how this organization will work and a mission statement and maybe some specific rules. I think they're going to simplify the rules, but be very adamant about these few rules we will enforce. They're going to have a better enforcement division. They've got to decide how many employees this organization has. Where will it be located? How will it administer college football differently than what is going on now? And how will they solve some of the problems like portal, NIL that aren't getting solved right now? Once they get all of that figured out, then I think it all comes together and then it's offered to all of these Division I schools, these FBS schools, football bowl subdivision schools, and then it's up to them to say, yeah, we like it, no, we don't like it, and I think if a great majority of them like it, then they'll say, okay, this is it. Then you have the organization. That's not the end of it. Once this new organization goes into play, I think they're going to have to adjust a year or two in. You're going to hear, this is why the NCAA screwed up. They didn't adjust. You are working, they are only there because the schools employ them. The schools are the ones that have the rights to this stuff. They don't just automatically get to do whatever they want. Nobody appointed them the dictator of college football. They basically are given money, allowed to make money off college football to run their policing of college football and their managing of it, but they were inflexible. It would be like if I hire a guy to mow my yard and he comes in and he's mowing my yard, and after the first 2 or 3 times I'd say, look, man, you're cutting it way too short. I want my yard higher because I'm having to water the fool out of my grass to keep it from dying. And he goes, okay, and then he keeps doing it. And I continue to talk to him and he just ignores me like, too bad, I'm your grass mower. Well, that's what the NCAA got to the point of, what are you going to do about it? And you know why they did this? Because they weren't dealing with a specific complaint. This school complains, that school complains. They're dealing with individual schools. They're not dealing with the whole body. So the whole body of college football never got together and said, hey, you idiots, we don't like what you're doing. So they just continued to mess with this. Okay, yeah, we heard your complaint. Oh, you don't like this? Okay. And now it's finally coming home to roost. You did this for decades, and you got away with it, and you're not getting away with it anymore. But now that we're going to form a new organization, we're going to get it right. And one of the things it's going to do is represent us instead of being a dictator and deciding stuff on its own. It's going to reflect our values and what we think is best for college football.
Yeah, and I think the salary cap idea is an interesting one.
That's just a proposal.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that I read in one of the articles. You can go online and Google search this and read some of the stuff that's going on, because it's just happening here, happening there, a committee here, and that's one of the things that was discussed. And again, I mentioned it last week, but the idea is that coaches, this is where the complaint came from anyway with regard to the portal. Coaches can just leave anytime they want, but they were telling athletes, no, you signed this contract, so you're stuck here, or you have to sit out if you leave. Well, coaches have had a version of that too, which is you sign a contract and you break it, you got to pay the money back, part of the money back. So the idea may be, yeah, you came here and we gave you a scholarship for 2 years, and by the way, that's worth $68,000, and you got this NIL money from us and blah, blah, blah. So you can leave, but you got to pay all that back, or you got to pay a percentage of it back, and then we'll release you.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll come up with some formula like that.
Yeah, to treat it more like a business.
You're going to treat it more like the complaints you had. Coaches can do it. Why can't we? Okay, you're going to operate by the rules coaches go under then.
Yeah, exactly. Razor Alex 88 says, today reignited my utter hatred for LSU fans. They keep doing their go Tigers. I wanted to say that in an Ed Orgeron voice, okay? When we are all trying to go to our vehicles. You won by 3 points. You would think the 2020 and 2021 years would have humbled them, but nope. They still are the worst fans to deal with in the SEC.
This is how most attitudes by, I don't care what fan base you're talking about, this is how they develop their feelings about certain families. It's not really going on trips as much as it is how they act in your house. I mean, I can still remember being maybe 10, 11 years old in Lubbock watching Texas Tech, and here'd come these goofy Longhorn, or the goofy Aggies, the snotty Longhorn, and it was the same thing. It's what they said during the game if you're sitting in their area, or what they were saying after the game when you're trying to walk out. So you go to somebody else's house and act like a jerk. And not all fan bases do this, I promise you.
No.
But those were the two. That's why to this day I have no use for either one of them. It's deeply embedded, just like he's mad because of what he went through. I went through that over and over and I'll never forget it. So, yeah, I guess they came in here and smarted off, and I agree with him. You won by 3 points. You're the SEC West champions. You didn't play like it. You know, you almost lost to a team that didn't have its starting quarterback and has been struggling this year. So what's there to smart off about?
Yeah, exactly. And not all fans are like that. I remember Will coming back from Mississippi State, and I was like, how was the atmosphere? And he's like, the fans were really nice. We had a great time.
One of the best places you can go.
Yeah.
Those people are humble.
Yes.
They're friendly. I think they kind of have an attitude of they've always been made fun of because everybody acts like Oxford's so great and they're just a little stupid, you know, stepson over here, redheaded step, blah, blah, blah. And I like the place. They say there's nowhere to eat. I've eaten in good restaurants there. I've enjoyed my trips there. More than overrated Oxford.
Yeah, okay, well, there you go. Dr. Starks wants to know, did Yurchek get played by Pittman and Sexton? Can you offer the fan base any consolation for what appears to be another example of a coach getting a fat new contract and immediately underperforming?
Yeah, I can offer a consolation because that's not what happened. Anybody that believes what's wrong with this football team has to do with the contract. First of all, he's not like that.
No.
You know, I don't think that contract affected him at all. What happened this season, again, basically, is they've had injuries that they didn't have last year. That's the difference. You know, again, you take away these injuries, and I think what you've got, 3 wins, 3 games they could have won that they lost by razor-thin margins, and now if they're 8-2, that question doesn't get asked. But I'm not saying it's a bad question. There's a lot of people probably thinking that. So it's a good question, but my answer is I'm around this guy. I've known him all the way back to when he was here under Briles, and I'm telling you, he's not like that. That's not what the problem they're having right now. It's got nothing to do with his contract.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. My tired of hogs sucking, that's a funny username, love it. The margin for error in the SEC is razor thin between winning and losing. We have 3 losses by a combined 7 points. That boils down to coaching or in-game decisions. What are your thoughts?
Well, again, I talked about it earlier. You've got people that are now scrutinizing those 2 decisions that Pittman made and saying he caused us to lose. Guess what? What did the guy on the other side of the field do? Did he bypass the field goal? Okay, that backfired and he didn't make it. What if Arkansas had scored somehow 1 more touchdown, and that was the difference in the game, that his guy, he bypassed a field goal. Then people would be all over him. Nobody's scrutinizing. They moved up in the polls after that game. So Kevin Kelly is looking good. I didn't do anything wrong. Yes, you did. In one instance, you did the same thing Sam Pittman did. What about the Dallas Cowboys? Made the same decision, and it cost them a game. Coaches do that, but here's what happens. This is the way this works. I know it's been going on as long as I've been around college football, first as a fan when I was a kid growing up and doing this job for 47 years. When you win a game, nobody goes over the laundry list of things that you did wrong. Why would they? You won. What's the point? It's an exercise in futility. We don't care. When you lose a game, that's when they start, okay, let's go look at that. Yep, you did that, you did that. This was a mistake, that was a mistake. So it only happens when you lose. And Arkansas lost, so Sam Pittman did that. Yep, that cost us the game. If Arkansas had won that game, let's say that Cade Fortin's arm doesn't get hurt, and on that play he throws a touchdown pass, then nobody's talking about that. They're scrutinizing Kevin Kelly.
Yeah, Brian Kelly. Yeah.
Brian Kelly. I've got
You're
Kevin Kelly
Kevin
on the brain.
Kelly in your brain, and I'm like, is he saying Kevin Kelly or Brian Kelly?
Yeah,
It could be the
Kevin
same person.
Kelly is a high school coach and it used to be here now.
I love it.
Kelly.
Mike, you crack me up. It's always a good Monday with you. Thanks so much for asking and watching on this week's Ask Mike. We'll see you next week to answer more of your questions.